Hello people, welcome to another edition of A Dose of Drew, and tonight is another knife review, and it is Friday Night Knives for this one. And tonight we are looking at the Mallery Designs Phorus, P-H-O-R-U-S version 2. This is one you can order from Mallery Designs. It is, spoiler alert, not inexpensive, but I believe it is also made by Riot for Mallery Designs. Very, very high quality, very good production tolerances and capacity. First things first, let's get some size comparisons here. All right, so standard 8 inches with approximately a 3.5 inch blade, right at from tip to scale, with approximately a 3 1/8 or 3 1/4 inch cutting edge. Very large sharpening choil, nice fit. Other things here, this is black anodized titanium, blue, blue dark matter fat carbon, I think that's called. Anyway, very, very cool. Let's do a couple of other bits here when I get some weight measurements in. Measurement is always the difficult stuff, right? All right, so let's take a look at this. Just under that inch per ounce, not bad, or right around there. So just under 3.5 ounces for that, which is not necessarily bad. It's actually pretty good for what it is. All right. For those who, it's not on the blade, so I'm going to go ahead and say this is S90V with a DLC blade coating on it, which is pretty cool. Just look at that. Fat carbon, that marbled fat carbon right there. That is some pretty, I don't even know if the camera can do it justice the way the chatoyance works. Pretty cool. All right, this isn't a small knife, it isn't a large knife. Let's get some comparisons in there. So it is definitely full size, as you can see. In fact, with the paramilitary too, there's actually a little bit more hand space on the Phorus V2. Just a little bit less cutting edge, though very, very similar. And of course, here it is next to the paramilitary 3, or Para 3. Definitely larger than the Para 3 and much, much closer to the paramilitary 2 in size, which is not a bad thing. This actually strikes a very nice balance with lots of hand space. And it's just a blur. Very similar in overall length to the blur. Less cutting edge, but you get that choil with more hand space. And not just any leak, but a random leak. Once again, one of the things you may notice about this, and I'm gonna take the blur out. The pinch point and everything, the narrow handle, very similar handle size to the leak, with, believe it or not, very similar cutting edge, but much, much, much more hand space. Significantly more hand space on this one, which is good in my opinion. All right, so a couple more here. There is the Benchmade Bug Out. As you can see, again, similar cutting edge, lots more hand space for different grips as well as larger hands. And there it is next to the Civivi Elementum. All right, a little bit larger, lots of hand space. You'll catch that here in a minute when and of course, this is it compared to my Wiener. It might be longer, but my Wiener is thicker, girthier, and better shaped. All right, so a couple of other things here. This is going to be hard to get. I want to get a couple things. One, overall blade height. Look, little over 1 1.125. Depending on where you get it. All right, a little over 1 1/8 high. Now I'm going to go right behind the blade, right behind the edge here, because this is ridiculously thin behind the edge. Oh, I came off. I think that 12 is about right. 12 thousandths behind the edge on S90V. That is ridiculously thin. That is one of the thinnest blades behind the edge that I've had in my collection. Now, I don't know if you can see the width very well on camera, the width of that secondary bevel compared to that width. That width is thinner than that one. Is slightly off. I don't know. I don't think that's even going to be able to be shown on camera. I think it'll focus on that. Might be a level of detail. It just means that that secondary bevel is off by the tiniest little bit. With it being that thin behind the edge, it might even be just a degree difference between each bevel. But it is on something that costs, that's as, I don't want to say expensive, but it's not inexpensive, but it costs as much as this with all the other levels of detail. That's something to notice. In fact, one of the things I can say, there was an unboxing on this quite a while ago. And one of the reasons it has taken me so long to get to this as a review is because you can even go back and watch it on the unboxing. There was a slight problem with the carbon fiber on one side where it had either not been thinned correctly or the pocket had not been milled correctly, but it stuck up. So I actually returned this to Mallery Designs. Not a problem. They were more than accommodating. I got them the old knife back. They got me a new one all in less than a week. Very, very good customer service. I want to make sure and put that out there because these things do happen. There's the stuff that gets through quality control from time and again. And a manufacturer's or a knife maker's willingness to make sure you get the right product is important to notice. And Mallery Designs did everything very quickly. They were more than happy. They just exchanged it for the exact same product. And this is the new knife I got. Important to note that. All right. So I want to get right into then on the damn nice bits. Because this titanium carbon fiber and S90V is a high-end knife. S90V is one of my favorite high edge retention steels. One of the M4s, but doesn't quite get up there. K390 is another great one. And of course, let's see, where's my, there it is. Everyone's other high 15V is pretty cool, especially with this big brown bear heat treatment protocol. So this is really cool. And I want to get into this. This is, again, a reverse Tanto blade, though it should be less. It's definitely a reverse Tanto, or clipped, whatever you want to call it. To me, this is definitely a reverse Tanto. Tanto, whatever you want to. However you like. I like Tanto, but, you know, is what it is. Now, slightly thinner handle does have plenty, as we were talking about with hand space, there's plenty of room for saber grip, which is good. You know, allows you to do a lot of stuff. But the choke back with the scoring, the choke up, oh my gosh, this is ridiculously nice for package opening, utility cutting, things like being able to go all the way up, right, and just the tip for scoring. Just if you have like a package or something, you don't want the blade to go very far so that you don't risk damaging anything inside. This is really good. It's right at for me, it's right there. My finger goes right to the edge and it sits. This is like the full flat grind version. Let me see if I can get it. This is one of the things this reminds me of a lot, is a full flat grind version of the Spyderco Smock. Something that I had often thought would be really cool. A full flat grind Spyderco Smock I thought would be great. I love the sliciness of the hollow grind and the, you know, almost razor capability that grind gets, but it is, you know, fairly thick saber type grind. This full flat grind on a similar blade shape, absolutely fantastic. And the ergonomics to utilize it are great. Saber grip, fantastic. Whether it be, it isn't quite as good for the overhand style grip if you don't choke up, but you choke up, and the overhand style grip is fantastic. It gives you tons of control. Balance point is is back here a little bit. So it is closer to right, you know, there. But once you're in the choke up point, balance point being right there, that power knuckle is right over it. This knuckle is where this pivots, right? So that's really nice. They did a really good job. I don't usually like it back here, but with the just sheer amount of design language they put into the choke up part, which here it's between my finger right there, so it's in the control point, right? That's my pivot point, my center of balance. all that sort of stuff. Very, very good on that. Ergonomics are nice in that sense. It is incredibly good in the hand. The aesthetics, I love I do like now I say full flat grind. Let's see if I can get this, because it's hard to really see. But there we go. That is actually flat. So right here is where it goes to the top. It's just really hard to tell because the plunge actually ends in this hole, which gives this top part a slight bit more thickness than this bottom part. And that makes for a very, very, very handy and useful flickability when it comes to that deployment hole. Doesn't matter which finger you use. It's a neat little trick. It is basically a full flat grind, except it doesn't. This very last bar up here, again, I'll try and get the light to shine so there, you can see it. That's the flat part. So there's just a tiny little bit, and then there's the rest of the grind, right? So that, you can see the line right there going into the top of the deployment hole. That's actually the top of the grind. I say full flat, but there is a tiny little bit that isn't. And it really does make for a more productive and better feeling deployment on the deployment hole. So very, very good. And I mean, that's part of the design. It kind of goes to the mechanics as well as design. The aesthetics of the deployment hole, I love. It keeps it clean. I like the black titanium, the blue fat carbon. That stuff's just great. The milled titanium pocket clip goes to right there. See, so that's how much is going to stick up above your pocket. Not bad. You can always have one finger still on there to grip while you grab the pocket clip, which helps alleviate some of the pressure on the pocket clip as well as help you to pull it out of your pocket. Very, very nice. And of course, the aesthetics when it's closed, relatively slim. Just let me, where's one that I can get that, yeah, paramilitary 2. Pretty darn slim. It's as tall at its tallest point as the paramilitary 2 is at just a scale. So that's nice. Now, something like the blur, actually very, very similar in size. The blur, just a tiny bit thicker. So really, really nice carry profile. I really can't fault that. And, you know, clean with the flat carbon just looks cool. Little hints of blue, some chatoyance. It picks up the eye as well as the light. If you want it picks up the light as well as the eye. Whichever way you like to say that, it does it. Mechanics, ball bearings in the flipper. It came oiled. I don't know if you can, let me see if I can get that light. There's a little bit of oil spot there. It came oiled from Mallery Designs. My guess is it either came from the factory that way or they took the time to personally oil each one before they boxed them up. Very, very nice reversible pocket clip with a pocket in there. So it says there's nothing to fill it in, but who cares? I don't particularly care about that. I don't mind seeing that there's a spot for lefties, which is cool. And the action, very snappy on the bit. And it just takes a little bit. You can always get it in a single snap. Very light touch, linear action. Very, very nice on that part. And that's really good. I would expect, quite honestly, it's more notable if something in this price point from this manufacturer with this much attention to detail, it's more noticeable if it doesn't, right? This is outstanding action, very linear, easy to control, tiny little shakes, snappy. It doesn't take a massive amount of flick to open it, right? It's just a very light flick will get it there while being very controllable on the drop. You don't have to worry about a guillotine knife, biting your finger on this one, and it still deploys quite well. So, noteworthy points and intended purpose I'm going to bring together on this one, just because this is a high-end knife. It's a high-end knife that does a really good job of being an everyday carry knife. This could be a safe queen, something that's just too purty to use, but it has all of the hallmarks of a usable knife. It's got a very usable blade. It has plenty of ergonomics as well as design cues for use, and it's just not cheap. And I really think that's what number one, there's a lot of expensive knives out there that you don't want to use unless you got the money to throw at it. But this is a user. This is something with S90V. You got the black and titanium carbon fiber. This is a durable knife. S90V is going to hold an edge for a very long time. You get a good edge on this one, and it's just going to hold it for an extraordinarily long time. And that's good, right? It's better than M390. It's better than a lot of other steels. It really, really does distinguish itself by the sheer volume of edge retention, while having a decent amount of toughness. And with the coating, while it is stain resistant with the coating, it just adds to that. And I really believe that this is not intended to be a safe, clean type knife. There's other ones that you can tell are sort of more art project than knife. And they're almost intended to be something you look at, or they're just so big and honking that it really is something you have more as a novelty item than an actual usable usable working tool. And I think that's the intended. This is intended to be a high-end EDC carry. And to tell you the truth, other than testing, which I do a lot because of this channel, if I didn't test knives or have a whole bunch, the amount of use something like this would get in a regular basis with just maybe a couple packages, some envelopes, you know, all of the stuff that I like to say, you know, a package piercer, got the nice tip, right? The shrink wrap slicer, this is one of the better blade shapes, especially with the choke up, to really get in there and just, you know, especially if you're doing something like this, where you can actually control how it slices on some of that bubble wrap or shrink wrap, does very good. Cardboard carver, absolutely. This high part here with this tall grind, S90V, relatively thin blade. I think I actually, let's get that out there because I think I actually did not do the overall blade thickness. 100, we'll go with 105 thousandths, but that's just rounding it up. So that's under 3 millimeters, relatively thin. So it is a cardboard carver. And of course, in the reverse grip, going through and getting something like, even if you, I don't know how to, if this will show up, but even like this, right? For the lever cuts, or if you're going in to open an envelope or you have something, it does it. It's an envelope eviscerator extraordinaire. It does the EDC tasks that happen on a regular basis, but no one task is ever that demanding on a blade. In a week, this might open 20 letters, right? A couple packages and stuff like that. This 90V will last a long time with just that level of EDC stuff. And it's not meant to be a budget thing as far as like, you know, for people on a low budget. This is meant to be, if you want a single knife, or if you have a collection where you have like a beater knife and then you have your nice knife, this is meant to be that nice knife. It's meant to be high quality user EDC. I consider that to be its intended purpose. I could be wrong. I have not talked to Dylan Mallery, I think is the name. I might get that wrong. But Mr. Mallery, I have not talked to the people at Mallery Knives about what they consider the intended purpose. That's what I'm gathering from the way this performs, because it's really, really nice. It's actually quite the good EDC knife with all this high-end stuff, the high-end titanium, the high-end carbon fiber, and the high-end S90V, which brings me to the cost-to-value ratio. This is not high on the cost-to-value ratio unless you significantly value those high-end parts, which sometimes I do. Quite honestly, this could be an aluminum knife with micarta inlays that don't have all of that detail, right? So that, you know, that kind of more rounded out or something, so it doesn't, you know, the milling cost and time is shorter. It could be something like CPM 154, 14C28, and even D2 with this thing, or you could even just go to something like S30. This could be a lower value knife without changing the cost. For those who know, it's around the $400 to $500 mark directly from the Mallery website. They may or may not still have the blue in stock. So this is significantly expensive. When you think about something like a Benchmade or some of the Demco knives and those things, those are, you know, a lot of the Chinese made knives are right in around that $250 to $300 mark. Not that that's bad. This, however, just doesn't hit that cost of value. There's things that could be done that would bring the price down to something that would be closer to like a quarter or a third of this price, while still performing not the same. S90V is not the same, but still performing similarly, right? There's a case for M390 here being a good replacement for S90V to make a less expensive version. But that's just to bring that cost to value ratio. That takes away from some of the intended purpose of this being a very fancy but usable knife. I could use this all the time and it'll still look fancy. And so while the cost to value ratio is high, the value that it's placing on is that higher end materials and stuff. So I don't want to take this down because it doesn't make any bones about what it's about. It's S90V with with anodized titanium and black dark matter blue carbon fiber. This is all high-end materials, every last bit. And it shows in the cost to value ratio. If this is something that's valuable to you, I like this design and I prefer that it came in S90V. I love the black, the fat carbon, the dark matter fat carbon. Absolutely beautiful. Is it expensive? Absolutely. This is not cheap. This is one of those things that you better know what you want. And this is high on the value. The design is good. The customer service was fantastic. The ergonomics are great. The aesthetics, I really like the aesthetics of this knife. I don't know if this shows up quite as well. Let's see if I can. Right, like that profile right there is really cool. I think that looks really good. Right, that is just awesome in its own way. So yeah, there's value there. The mechanics pretty much flawless. It's obviously designed to be controllable on the drop, which it is, while still flicking nicely. Very well tuned, right? It's a high-end attention to detail, the best, some of the top of the line materials. Interesting little bits on the I don't know if it shows, but like right there, there's actually almost an octagonal type feel to the clip. It does a lot of things extraordinarily well on an EDC basis, while being high end, looking really good, and performing outstandingly well. This is a user. Yeah, you can hold on to it, but this thing will be used just fine and do so for many years with high performance. And that's really good. And I was expecting great things. Like when you're paying this much for a knife that's by a known designer who's got some experience, and the manufacturer being Riot is also a manufacturer known for its great quality control, its attention to detail, and just its execution of designs and stuff is well known to be very high-end and very, very good. And this is no exception. So it fulfilled my expectations, went a little bit above and beyond, because I've never had a direct from Mallery knife. So it was actually exceeded my expectations just a bit. And I don't really have any requests. Well, I'd love to see another design on this one that maybe takes a little bit more advantage of a price differential. It's not necessarily there. Like I would honestly, Magna Cut possibly just because of the toughness. I would be fine with S45VN. This is actually a great blade shape in my opinion for S45VN, especially if you're going to be putting colors on it. I don't know how much more expensive it is or compared to Magna Cut or something like that, but you could go to some of the lower end particle manufacturers. CPM 154 immediately comes to mind. For a blade like this, where you could go with aluminum and some of the cheaper stuff. You could go from the $400 to the $100 to $150 range, S35VN, CPM 154, things like that, or even 14C28N if you wanted to get below 100. There's a lot of other stuff. If I had a request, it'd be, this is such a good knife and such a good design, it seems a shame to limit it only to the people who can afford the higher end stuff. So if I actually had a request, it would be, give us this design in a steel, when that thin behind the edge, 14C28N again, or CPM 154, some of the tougher ones, come to mind right offhand. Well heat-treated 14C28N with an aluminum handle, maybe not even the inlays or something, but something along those lines. and maybe aluminum or whatnot, I could go for that. That would be a great way to bring this wonderful design to more people so that they could afford it. And that would be the only request that I would have. Normally you see me review some of the more value knives going, hey, give me something a little that I can pay more for. This is the one where I could say, this is such a great little design that even a lower cost version would be fantastic. It would actually be really nice to see. And I mean, I've got to say, I don't want to say that Civivi kind of doing, but to me, even without the button lock, this could do many of the same things as something like that Sentinel Strike or many others. So it's really, really cool in that sense. And really, that, you know, I want to put that too. Like this is in that high 90s, probably low 90s. The only thing that brings this down, if we take the cost to value ratio out, this is easily mid to high 90s. Just the cost of value is a little bit, brings it down a little bit. But if this is what you spend your money, it's like, look, if I'm going to save up and spend money, it's going to be a high-end knife. This is what I save up and buy. Like, it's nice to see the other ones. Then this value to you is what it is. It's not a matter of cost. It's a matter of how good it is. And this is really good. So there's value there, but it's not something that's directly tied to the cost. It's more about a personal preference. But it is a package piercer, a shrink wrap slicer, a cardboard carver, and an envelope eviscerator extraordinaire. It is a high-end EDC knife meant to be a user. You can save, keep it all you want, but this is definitely a design that is meant to be used and to do EDC tasks well, and it does so very well. And so I'm going to, go ahead and just end it right there. No big deals. This is a highly recommendable Mallery Designs. There'll be a link if I can find it down below. And as always, go ahead, take this video, watch it twice, comment as much as you like, be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your dose of Drew. I am said Drew, and you guys have a great rest of your night.